There we are. So let's open up the slideshow. So I think I recognise you all. I do recognise you all, and you maybe you remember my name, but I'm Becky, Lead Stewardship Officer at the Diocese of Leeds, and I'm ably assisted by Janet, who's not here today, but is also running a series of webinars on generosity and giving. And you can contact us, as you know, using the information on this slide. We're always available to talk to you about how you can improve your generous culture, how you can introduce different giving devices into church or ideas. And we have actually been visiting churches firsthand and going to PCC meetings for the first time in a very long time recently. So it's been absolutely lovely to get out and about. So if you think we could add value to your PCC meeting, then do invite us along, and we can talk to you about any topic about giving, generosity and fundraising. So what we're going to try and cover in this session, and the things you're hopefully going to know by the end, is know why storytelling is important in attracting donations from people of faith and those of none. Know where to tell and how to tell your stories to generate action, and have some examples of great storytelling to take away. And hopefully if we have time for questions at the end, we can share some ideas, or we can explore some opportunities and discuss which ways to go next. So what do we mean when we're talking about stories, particularly stories that drive action for charities? Well, from the beginnings of language, stories have helped us to understand ourselves and the world around us. It's a way of us making sense of the world, if you like. Stories, as you know, have a place in every culture, and they create a sense of community amongst listeners and tellers. So we know churches have an abundance of stories, incredible stories that, if told well, can spark imagination, passion, and the most loyal support. The trick is, how do we tell those stories? Where do we tell them, and who's going to listen? We hope that by telling stories, we can bring people together and solidify our concepts and our vision, and that our people who support us can understand our vision and make sense of it for themselves. We can use stories to explain our need. We can use stories to explain the impact of our work. But we must remember that behind every story is a person with real fears, hopes, vulnerabilities, and futures. So we must tell our stories honestly, openly, but authentically, all the time protecting the people who lend us their stories. So I think that gives us a bit of a background of where we come from when we think about stories. And just be mindful of the fact that telling stories authentically and with the permission of the people who own the stories is what we want to achieve. Now, a great starting point for understanding how faith-based organisations use stories to raise income is by reading Henry Nouwen's Spirituality of Fundraising book. It's not very long, I read it in about an hour, but it really gives us a sense of the fundamentals of what we are about when we're trying to tell stories to get support. So Henry Nouwen, he was a Dutch Catholic priest. He was born in 1932 and he died in 1996. But he was a professor, a writer and theologian, and he wrote a series of books beginning with A Spirituality of. And the one that I'm particularly interested in is The Spirituality of Fundraising. Now, what does Henry say in his book? Well, basically, he reminds us that as Christians, we know that as the creator of everything, God is the true owner of everything. And that is the core message of stewardship, isn't it? That we're only on this earth borrowing things that God has given us. We are just simply stewards of all that we have. We are called to give as an expression of our faith, and to give generously is to be caught up in the overflow of God's grace. For when we give, we reflect the true nature of God himself. So what can we do to live out that act of discipleship? Well, we can support our givers with this expression of faith, but we must be mindful of the giver's obligation to use their gifts wisely, well, considerately and thoughtfully. So we're stewarding God, everything God has given to us, but we're not just going to give it away to any old cause. And that is what we're about when we're asking people for money in church. We need to instill in them a sense of confidence that we're going to use it wisely and well, so that they know they are giving God's gifts away wisely and well. Hopefully that makes a great deal of sense. It did to me. When I read it, I thought, yes, this is a real point. So in his book, In a Spirituality of Fundraising, Henry Nouwen suggests that fundraising is not just a response to crisis. So when our church spire shows signs of blowing down in a gale, it's not just please give and support us, the church spire will collapse. It's rather a life-giving, hope-filled form of ministry. We know that these crisis moments exist in churches, and we understand that often they're very much based around the state of the building. But actually, what motivates people to give is their understanding of your vision of building a better world. So if you can express that and communicate that, people will want to give to you. When we approach people for money, we must be sure that we are inviting them into our vision of fruitfulness and to work together for the full coming of God's kingdom. So what we're trying to do is build God's kingdom on earth and invite others along on the journey. So fundraising organisations can promote their vision of, let's say, a world free of homelessness, and the Salvation Army do this really well. And of course, they highlight their work to tackle all of the issues around homelessness. So what they're doing by telling these stories is articulating a world like the kingdom of God and their disciple-like actions to tackle the problems. They invite givers to share the vision, and who wouldn't want a world free of homelessness, whether you've got faith or whether you haven't. Homelessness is one of those things in our society that we want to see the end of. And what we're doing, Henry Nouwen asks us to describe the common ground of God's love by asking for gifts to fund that vision. So help us end homelessness. Tell a story about it and invite people to give to build that kingdom of God here on earth. So essentially what the gift giver is asked to do is being called on a journey of faithful discipleship, and through their own generosity, they can help build God's kingdom. That's a little bit of a background of where we come from when we're asking people for money, trying to get them to understand that we have a vision of God's kingdom here on earth. And to do it, we need support, we need help, and it's their support and help that will help us accomplish it. So let's have a look at some great examples then from secular charities and faith-based organisations too, of how they use that device to gain support. Now here's the NSPCC's Full Stop campaign. This is their what do you call the advert, if you like. But around this campaign, there were many videos created that told the stories of children in quite harrowing situations, and sometimes the NSPCC have been criticised for showing the facts so starkly. But what they did was they wanted to use a strap line that built the idea of ending cruelty to children, full stop. So as with the Salvation Army wanting to end homelessness, the NSPCC want to end cruelty to children. Who doesn't want that? And with their series of films and videos, they got a great deal of support through their Full Stop campaign, and it's still ongoing. It's been very successful. And here is the Salvation Army's Off the Street campaign. Again, the Salvation Army have created many different stories around the lives of people who have suffered by being homeless. And by using these stories, they've been able to paint a picture of what it's actually like and to motivate people to support them. I'm going to play it. Let's hope the tech works. I will just preface this before I press the button. Sometimes when you play a YouTube film, you get a horrible advert at the beginning that shows you how to do marketing. So I do hope we don't get the advert. Let's go.
This is Amy's first winter on the streets. She thought life here couldn't be worse than the abuse she suffered at home. But now she's cold, hungry, and desperate to find somewhere warm to stay. Amy has her whole life ahead of her. What does it take to get her off the streets for good? At the Salvation Army, it starts with something as simple as a warm welcome and shelter from the cold. But that's just the first step to getting a young homeless person off the streets for good. Will you help today by calling 0800 083 6633 and giving just £15 to the Salvation Army? Your gift means we can help give Amy the practical support she needs to get her settled in her own place and stay off the streets for good. Is there a better gift this winter? So please call 0800 083 6633 now. Thank you.
You get the idea. We've got that kingdom of God here on earth. We don't want homelessness. We're invited to share the journey and end homelessness now. Let's forward the slide.
What I found interesting, Becky, on that that video was the music, because the music meant a lot to us four, but would it mean anything to anybody who wasn't churched? And does that really matter? Because it was a lovely tune, but I think it means more to me because I recognise the tune and the words.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think when they're creating these films, they very, very carefully choose the music so it means the most to the maximum amount of people. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And there are a couple of film clips that I'm going to show you in this presentation that use music really, really evocatively to create that sense of empathy. So yeah, I hope the Salvation Army film made you feel something and gave you an idea of how, by using a narrative and using a characterization, what the Salvation Army have done have put you in the shoes of somebody who is far less fortunate than us. But as a donor, we can be the hero. We can save that, and we can create something, a world that's very, very different. Okay, let's carry on. I'm just trying to, I would play with my slideshows whenever I play a video. For whatever reason, it doesn't let you advance to the next slide very easily. But I've got another video here, which is brand new. It's only come out this week. And this is one that really uses music very evocatively. It's a song I think means something to most people. But the storytelling is so powerful, and it is only revealed at the last minute. I hope you enjoy this. You might have seen it. It's been on TV quite a lot in the last week or so. Come on, slides. There we go. It's called What Jack Gave. It's from WaterAid. I'm sorry, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
57 years of precious memories. He was wonderful.
This was his RAF tie. It reminds me of him.
His cologne, he said. He hoped it would help me find a new wife.
His first boxing gloves. He taught me how to get back up.
He gave me water. Life.
I felt the
absolutely beautiful. When I watched that for the first time, I thought, where do I sign? Take my credit card. I thought it was very moving, very useful, very clever, very clever. And you've probably seen on the TV quite a lot these days that charities are doing a heck of a lot of work to promote legacy giving and legacy gifts. They know that legacy gifts form a huge amount in their income stream. And as the Church of England know too, and you might have experienced this in your church, a legacy gift can be transformational for the work that you want to achieve in church. Right, go back to the advancing the slide game. That's better. Okay, so hopefully you can see a slide now that's got 3 rectangles in it. So we'll move on from the films for a little bit. I wanted to show you how charities are using posters and leaflets on in magazines, might have seen them on bus shelters and things like that, how they use storytelling and particular characterization to generate support. So the Cancer Research, one of the biggest charities in the UK, will often use first-hand accounts of cancer survivors or people receiving treatment or people benefiting from the work of the Cancer Research charity and tell their story. You can see how very briefly it's shown in this advert. And in fact, I think pictures do most of the talking. So we have Sue there, who is a cancer survivor. And she's joined with a friend in another picture, smiling, happy, promoting a really good vision of a world free of cancer, which is the Cancer Research's ambition. We know that is probably hugely visionary, but with our support, what they've actually made us manage to believe through their marketing is that careful research, and it's only by research we can beat cancer for good.
Becky, are you trying to show us something? Because we can't see anything.
Are you okay? I beg your pardon. It's the slide game. There, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
That's better. There we go. Good, yeah. So you can see Sue and her friend and a researcher there in the film. The middle one tells a story, I think, of Rose and work by Christian Aid, which will be a charity I'm sure familiar to many churches, maybe even your church. Climate Crisis, Every Last Drop is very brief. It does what it sets out to do, which is to show us that water is a really precious commodity for Rose and her family in times of drought. And your support will help. And then, of course, in the UK, we are huge animal lovers, and animal charities have a great deal of success fundraising in our country, probably better than any other place in the world. And some charities will use animals to tell their story. Here we are, the old take on Lonely Hearts ad, and who could not be moved by those eyes and wanting to give to Dogs Trust to help support dogs with no home. Okay, so we're going to move now into how we can adapt what we've already seen and use that to tell our church's story. I've just picked out the Friends of the Earth Save Our Bees campaign just to show what I mean as a good starting point for how we can use what our charities around us are telling us. What they've done with the Save Our Bees campaign is taken little sound bites from ordinary members of the community who have recognised that bees are crucial. And these little sound bites, they've just used on different campaign posters. And I think they're quite powerful. So it's just a text overlaid onto a photograph, which is something we can do very easily nowadays with the software that we have. But it's just people saying, what do our bees mean to us? I don't need to read them. And I think you can join the dots to where I'm going next. But what can we do in our church? Well, we can ask people, what does our church mean to them? How easy is that as a storytelling device? to gain support and gain momentum, gain donations for our church. Really, really easy. Here's some promotional material from the Bradford Night Stop. They've not taken the point of view of a service user, like in the Save the Bees campaign, where you would ask a member of your church community to say, what does your church mean to you? What they've done here is they've used a volunteer. What does volunteering mean to you? Now, the purpose of this Instagram advert was to get more support for the Bradford Night Stop because they don't have enough volunteers to run the services that they need to run. So they asked a volunteer. In fact, he is unnamed, and it's a little bit obscured on the on the picture. So it's not as if anybody had to stand up and be counted here. What is really important to you about volunteering? What do you get from it? And I don't know for sure, but who knows what this Instagram post led to? Did it get more support for the charity? I feel the soundbite that was overlaid on the photograph is quite useful. It tells us in a snippet, if we can't be bothered to read, what is it that you get from volunteering and what do you want to accomplish by helping at Bradford Night Stop? Well, it feels wrong to me that people on the edge are on the edge or sometimes fall right off the edge of society. So if you have any volunteers in your church community and you need more, why not get them to give you a first-hand account? What does it mean to them to do it? Now, the RNLI, aren't they lucky? They've had a BBC film crew following them around for several years now, doing that TV show called Saving Lives at Sea, which I think is still being shown on BBC Two. But what they've got from having that BBC film crew follow them around is a whole heap of stories that they tell and they retell on all their communication platforms. So it goes in their leaflets to their donors, it goes on their website, it goes on their social media, and the stories are often accompanied by films. And so if you've got anyone handy with a smartphone that could make a film. So the point of view of the first story here is from somebody who's actually been saved at sea, saved from the surf. Amanda, who was washed out to sea at Perranporth Beach in Cornwall. And then, of course, because we all like dogs, they've chosen to use the story of a dog who fell over a cliff onto a beach at Seaford. And there's a little film clip of the dog being warmly greeted and safe and well. And what the RNLI have chosen to do on that social media post is ask for donations for continuing support. And it's raised substantial amounts of money, but it's only the story that's generating those donations. If they'd simply put, please support our work, it wouldn't have been so powerful. So we're getting the idea of how we can use first-hand stories and we can use them in different ways. So the next two slides, similar in the sense that they use the service user's point of view, but neither of them are identified. So we've got St George's Crypt, as we know that they do great work in the centre of Leeds, giving people a roof and a hot meal if they're out on the streets. The picture is telling the story. There's no creativity needed around writing about what's happening to the gentleman there. I think we can understand what is happening. He's there at St George's Crypt and he's being looked after. There's a tiny story about what St George's Crypt do and an invitation to donate if you'd like to support the work. Same with Martin House Children's Hospice there. The young lady there, obviously one of St Martin House's children, enjoying the company of the rabbits and the petting zoo, which visits quite frequently, and inviting people to buy something from the Amazon wish list for the children who are supported by the hospice. Now, I spend an extraordinary amount of time looking at churches' social media and websites, and I'm really nosy. So what I like to do is, before I go and visit a PCC, is just have a look at what the church is offering and the flavour and the way that the church portrays themselves, the people in the community. So to an outsider like me, I can glean a lot of information by what they put out. So here's a selection of photographs that I found recently. They're pretty reasonable, and I think they do tell a story. They typically, as churches do, they were just on Facebook with a very short caption and not much else. I was having to join the dots up about what was happening for myself. So we've still got a little way to go, I would suggest, as churches to tell stories in the way that our secular charities do. But we are well on the way. And whenever I look at a church's communications, I'm always surprised, and pleasantly so. But I always find churches fall into one of 5 categories. Now, I might see you smiling at some of these. I won't ask you to stand up and be counted. Is this your church? Do you create amazing photo opportunities but don't take the actual photo? So all the wonderful things that you do in your church, in your community, do you never get the camera out, or do you forget it, or does it just not occur to you? Do you take the photo and there it sits on your phone? Or, slightly better, do you just stick it in a folder called Gallery on the website and don't put any captions there at all? But it's nice for the people who are in the photo to go back and have a giggle at themselves. It doesn't actually do anything for any supporters. Do you go one step further, take the photo, plonk it on Facebook with a few words like our youth group enjoy flying kites? I suppose that's a good compromise, isn't it? But we can do better. Can we take a photo, tell the story behind it? Or even better, can we take a photo, tell the story, and give a call to action? Are we inviting people to join us on that journey of building God's kingdom here on earth? So here we have an example. Fabulous action shot of Jesus and Me Club, Jam Club. And children take good photos, don't they? And if you have permission and you can use it, I'd say use it. It's just an example of a photograph, but it's the storytelling behind it that makes the difference. It makes a good photograph into a great photograph. Jam Club offers the opportunity to explore Christian faith in a fun way. We learn about Bible heroes and great stories and how these can help us and support us to lead our lives. We play games, we do crafts and quizzes, we enjoy singing and listening to worship songs and music. We pray together and have a great time. We are hoping that lots of children will come and join in every Friday. Written by Ellie, who actually goes, age 7 Jam Club member. And then a call to action. To discover more about this and other activities, please visit. So a great example of a story behind a picture. And here's another one. Community cafes is something that so many of our churches take part in. And we may or may not want more people to come, but even so, we could always do with more volunteers or even financial contributions to help us in our work. This is the community cafe that's been running for a year, and fresh coffee, cakes and biscuits are going down well. I'll lead you to read the rest. So I don't know about you, but reading that, seeing the pictures, I want to go. And if I can't go, how can I support? And the trick is asking people to, in your call to action, to support you in the way that you really need. Baptisms often take a good picture, as do weddings. This is asking the community to support the work of St. Thomas's, or even to consider celebrating their child's baptism at the church. Nice, eh? And here's children preparing for a church gala. Some of the younger members of our congregation were able to create bunting in preparation for our gala. Lucy told us that it had been fun to use the fabric and paints, and each member of Messy Church had managed to make 3 pieces each. It's a remarkable achievement in only an hour, and now the churchyard is well on its way to having a gala feel. Notice the call to action. We would not be able to hold our gala if it wasn't for the generous support of our congregants and our wider village community. If you'd like to donate to our work, join us or volunteer, please visit to find out more. Now, I'm not suggesting if you take a good picture, you plonk it on Facebook and you do a story every single time. Sometimes the picture itself is enough. But occasionally, it's really lovely to be able to show people the work, showcase the work that you do, and to invite them to join you. This is a typical one that it's a problem that we often face in our churches. We have crumbling buildings, and we need to ensure that the church is protected for future generations. Well, we've managed to capture a shot of the next generation in church, little George, whose great-great-grandfather worshipped at the church, and it's our responsibility now to ensure that church is still there for his children and children's children. And it's a call to support Church Appeal. So I've been through a few church promotional leaflets as well, and I came across this one and I saw huge opportunities for storytelling. If you just look down that list of bullet points of all the things Bingley Parish Church is involved in, it's a couple of years old now, so there may be a few less, particularly with the dreaded COVID, but still there's plenty of opportunities to use some of those activities to tell stories. And here they have actually told some stories through their photograph gallery and reminded people that their generosity and support has enabled their church to develop and become a more welcoming environment. It's a church for all ages and all the community. So I think the leaflet shows us in a very simple way that we can tell stories if we just look a bit deeper at what we're doing. And they don't need to be big stories. It's just something that reminds people of what we do. Okay, so assuming we haven't got pictures, we can always tell our stories elsewhere. And here's some examples. Now, this first quote is put on social media. Oh, well, I did suggest it was used after a picture of volunteers at work in the churchyard, but still it could be used as a standalone quote. St. Mary's Church relies on the generous donation of time, talents and money by individuals to maintain its fabric and ministry. Please visit our donation page to make a gift to our church or scan the code below with your phone. I've seen that sort of message being displayed on church notice boards for visitors as well. Here's another example that can be used in a thank you letter, maybe a website, or even on a Church Near You page. It's reminding people of the impact of their donation, the impact of their support. Reminding people where their money has gone is always a good idea, because otherwise they think it goes into a black hole. And charities and charities who operate even without the church, outside the church circle, do this really well. If you subscribe to any charity, you'll be getting communications quite frequently telling you of their where your donation has been spent and the difference it's made. We tend not to do that so much in church, but we can do it because it's easy. We can always write a thank you letter and just put a word or two about the difference people's generosity and kindness has made. We've got somebody joining us. And if you're into blogging or you have a parish magazine, you can write more of an extended story. Children always make a good story. The Messy Church making biscuits and listening to stories of Jonah and the whale. Again, a nice photograph would really paint a picture. You'll notice that I use QR codes quite a lot. It's quite a really good way for people to give very simply and easily to your church. People tend not to put money in an envelope and drop it off at the vicarage anymore, despite the fact that some churches believe they really will. They don't. If you can get yourself into online giving, it's transformational in receiving donations from your wider community. And maybe you've already done that. But again, Janet and I are here to support you if you want to move along and into online giving. If you run any social action projects, here's an example of some storytelling that you can put on the dining tables or even on social media. And this is wording that I saw when I went to visit a place actually in the Diocese of Newcastle. We tend not to visit churches that are on our doorstep, do we? This is where I was on holiday, asking people to support the cost of maintaining the building. And it's the old device of reminding people of how much it actually costs just to keep open. And that is all from me. So I hope you've got some ideas of storytelling and how easy it could be, or even how involved it could be if you want it to. Have we got any questions? Or any comments?
I haven't got a question, Becky, but this might help. We have joined Easy Funding since about November, I think. And it was in our newsletter every week with great details, how to do it, how to join, what to click, what to not. And to be fair, we didn't get, other than the normal people, we didn't get anybody to join. So we actually made a little YouTube clip, how to do it, what to press. And from that, we've got a couple in a week. So just by having something visual has helped rather than it just being in writing.
That's really helpful. And for Brian, Abby and Christine, who may not know what easy fundraising is, it's a way of raising money for your church as you shop, isn't it? The donation, organisation gives you a donation every time you shop through big retailers. And I did hear, Susan, of a church whose congregation took it up really well, and they were all booking their holidays through a special holiday booking site, and those big spends were really leading to big fundraising contributions. Yeah.
Well, we're all trying to beat each other. You know, I've earned 3p this week or something.
Well, it's better in your pocket than in the retailers. That's what I say.
But like you were saying, visual is so important.
Yeah.
And that was a real learning lesson to us.
Yeah, most definitely. Anything that's visual can be far better understood than words on a page, most definitely. Yeah. Well, I hope it was useful. I hope you got something from it, and I do hope that I gave you some ideas that you can take away and make those first steps into telling your own stories. It's not hard, and I do understand that bigger charities have people who go to university for many years and they practice their craft for many years before they get to the point of creating a film like Jack's story. But still, we can take elements of that and use our own stories and help convince people that our work is very worthy of their support. Okay, so this film will be available on my website afterwards. So if you think it will be of use to anybody else, then do share it. We've lost Christine now. I was going to say, Christine, she's missed it. She can follow it up on the website, but she probably will anyway. Thank you all for your time.
Thank
And
you.
if you need me, you know where I am.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.